All right, it's time for the Word of God. Let's everybody turn to the book of First Kings, chapter. I was singing too loud this morning. The worship was really good, and I was like all into it. For like it never happens to you guys. Come on. First Kings, chapter 19. Verses 11 to 14. 1 Kings chapter 19. See, if I use this voice, everybody falls asleep. You fall asleep anyway, but like more people fall asleep. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 11 to 14. It's a bit long, but let's try to read this out loud together in one voice. Ready, begin. The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." Whoa. Hey, you guys actually did a pretty good job. We all ended all together. That's pretty awesome. That's teamwork, unity right there. To give you a little background, what happened was the prophet Elijah was living in a time when the government was really against the people of God. Really against God. The government was doing things that caused the people to sin against God. Idol worship, sacrificing to idols, all the things that God told his people not to do. Okay? And so it's the most powerful people in the land who are, in essence, leading everybody astray. Does it sound familiar? For us living as Christians in this country, yes, we have a lot of freedoms, right? We have the freedom to worship. We have the freedom to assemble. We have the freedom to speak out, right? The things that we believe in. We have lots of freedoms in this country, but if you really think about it, if you really think about the actual freedoms that you have, you realize that it's restricted. Because there are powerful people here in this country that are against God, that are against Christians and Christianity. It might be, for example, your school teachers, right? Has any of your teachers ever ridiculed Christianity? When you're learning your biology, when you're learning your science or your evolution, and then they make these little side remarks about Christians and about God. Have you heard that before? When you guys go to college, it's going to be in your face. They're going to say stuff and they're going to just ridicule Christians in front of everybody. And as a Christian, you're going to feel like, oh, I should do something. I should say something, but you don't feel like you can. I'm just a student. I'm just a teenager. What am I going to do? What am I going to say? They have all the power. Have you ever tried to write something about what you believe in on Facebook? Right? We're afraid to. We're afraid to because of all the replies, the negativity that's going to come out when we say something about our faith and say something about what we believe in. Right? There are lots of issues that we want to avoid, even here at church. As a pastor, right? You'll never hear anything about homosexuality. You'll never hear anything about abortion. You'll never hear anything about, these issues that actually we should probably talk about. Right? Drugs and Things like this. Having dialogue and talking about it, but we're afraid to, because what if I say something controversial? What if I say something that the vast majority disagrees with? Well, we're afraid of cyberbullying. We're afraid of actual bullying at school. We're afraid of speaking up, standing out. We just want to go with the flow. One of the when I was in college, I remember seeing this T-shirt that this person was wearing, and it was like a picture, a drawing of an underwater scene, right, under the ocean scene, and you have all these vicious fish swimming in one direction. We're talking like piranhas and sharks and barracudas, and you guys know what these are? Yeah, and they all have sharp teeth, and they're all. Did somebody ask if fish had teeth on Friday? Someone said, do fish have teeth? Anyway, yeah, they do, right? And these have vicious teeth, and they're all swimming this way. And then there's this one lone fish swimming the opposite way. And it's that Christian fish, right? Swimming the opposite way. And it says, go against the flow. I was like, man, that should be the motto for my life. Go against the flow. In theory, it sounds good. In theory, it sounds, I don't want to go where everybody else goes. I don't want to follow the world. I want to follow God. I want to go against the flow. In theory, it all sounds good, but in reality, in practice, it's so hard. Not only because of peer pressure, not only because of the stresses of the world, not only because of, your own desires, right? Your own, I want to do this. I want to go this way, but also because there are powerful, influential people in your life who make it very difficult for you. I remember I might have told this story before, but in one of the Korean Thanksgivings when I was living in Korea, okay, when all the family gathers together. In Korea, it's a huge deal, right? Where they all gather together. And I did tell this story. I hope you guys remember that. During this time, the adults, they were all drinking, right? They're all drinking, and I was there. I was invited because I guess I was a family member too. I was there, and then everybody's all drinking and things like this. And then there was a kid. She was probably 14, 15 years old, okay? And they're like, hey, everybody drink. And then they offered her a drink, alcoholic beverage. And I'm not saying, you guys, we all have different ideas about alcohol and about, but if you're with your family, it's okay. Or if it's, you're going to, we all have different ideas, but in this situation, this girl, she was a Christian, and in her heart, she decided by her faith that this is not something I should participate in. Okay? So everybody has different ideas about that. For her, in her faith, she decided this is not something that I should participate in. But the adults were like, oh, here, have a drink. And then she's like, oh, no thanks, right? And then one of the uncles says, oh, right, she's a Christian. She doesn't do stuff like that. And everybody's like kind of looking down on her and, oh, you think you're better than us, and they're doing all this. And they were like, these are older people. Adults who have responsibility to protect and take care of the kids, right? But instead of doing that, they were like making her feel so awful for saying something that she believes in. Eventually, she gave in. She goes, no, that's not it. No, it's okay. And then she takes it because she didn't want to feel like she was going against the adults. She didn't want to feel left out. She didn't want to feel condemned and persecuted. Maybe sometimes you feel like that. Maybe it's not an adult, right? Maybe it's like, you happen to hang out with the popular kids at school, right? And they have a certain level of power or authority or influence. In the time of Elijah, it was actually the royalty, the king and the queen. It was the people who have political power who were leading the people astray. But you remember the story of when Elijah by himself had this fight against the prophets, quote unquote, prophets of the other gods, quote unquote, right? And remember how they had this sacrifice, and then Elijah said, all right, who's ever God, burns up the altar with flames. That's the true God. Remember this epic battle that they had, right? And so then the prophets of the other gods, they were like dancing around and screaming and, whatever, send down fire, and nothing was happening. And then Elijah started to taunt them. Maybe he's sleeping, guys. Maybe you should scream louder, yell louder. And then they started doing stuff like cutting themselves and things like that. Let the blood flow so that, the gods would see how devoted they are, and but nothing happened. And then you remember when Elijah just prayed to God and say, God, let the people know today that you are God. And then God just sent fire. And it was just, and everybody's like, whoa. And I'm talking like you guys. It was like, and then like, whoa. And then like, okay, never mind. And it was a great victory. And you would think that at that moment, Elijah would be just, imagine something like that happened to you, where you experience a great big victory. Like God is like, just so obviously there. And he vanquishes, he destroys your enemies. And you're like standing in victory. How wonderful that must have been for him, right? But in today's passage, right after that happens, Elijah is in hiding. Because the thing that he expected didn't happen. You would think that after this great big victory, right, everybody would be following him, but that didn't happen. The king, the king and the queen, they got so mad, they swore that they're going to kill Elijah if it's the last thing they do. And he goes running. How disappointing that must have been. You guys have ever experienced these types of situations where, you go to a retreat or something like that, right? And you're just so blessed. And you say, all right, from now on, you know that conviction that you had, right? Or even on a Sunday, right? After worship, after fellowshipping, after talking to your friends, and they encourage you, and you're like, yes, all right, from now on, I'm going to be different. Yes, I'm going to be victorious. I'm going to worship God. I'm going to obey God. And you have this victory. And then something happens. Your parents yell at you. Your friends think you're crazy. Everybody, looks down on you. Something happens, or you fall into your own sin. Something happens, and instead of standing in victory because of the convictions that you've had and the experience that you've had with God, you go crawling back into your hole and just, I can't do it. I'm scared. What if? And that's what was going on with Elijah at that time. And during those times, you want God to affirm his presence in your life. You want God to say, hey, dude, it's all right. I'm here. I got you. You don't have to worry about it. And you want to hear God's voice. You want to see God's presence. You want to see God working in your life. And that's what Elijah wanted. He wanted God to confirm that he was still with him, even though he's running for his life and he's scared to death. And then we come to today's verses. Look at verse 11. The Lord said, go out, I'll show myself to you. Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. But look what happens. Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And then you'll see a pattern here, right? There's an earthquake. But God's not in that earthquake. And then there's this fire, all these miraculous type things happening, but God's not in any of these things. We want great big things to happen in our lives. We want great big miracles to happen in our lives, because then we'll know that God is real and that God is there and that God cares for me. We want God to do all these great things. This morning I got a text message from a friend of mine who is a husband and wife. They're in their 40s, and they said, finally, our brother or sister-in-law and some other relative, older people, they finally started going to church. In their 50s. So all their life they're praying for their family members to be saved. And it seemed like God is never going to answer this prayer because they're in their 50s. And yet today, this morning, I got a text message. They finally started going to church. They finally started to believe in God. I'm like, what a great, wonderful thing to happen. How come these things don't happen to me? Why are some of my relatives still struggling? You know, why is my sister still not a Christian? You know, my sister's in her 40s. She's still not a Christian. One of them. Two of them are. One of them isn't. You know, how come it doesn't happen to me? God, where are these great big miracles? I want to see you working in me and in my family when I pray for our church. Have you been to those churches where like every worship time people are just jumping up and down, right? They're jumping up and down and they say like the Spirit is here, and then like they see smoke and stuff. And they're like, whoa, this is so great. God is here. And then you come here to our church, right? And you don't see that, or you don't feel that, right? You're like, oh, I don't know. You know, you go to Rise, you know, to the Rise worship and everybody's on fire for God, right? And you want that to happen. You want to see like huge revivals happening. Especially after retreats. Especially after special events. Especially if you yourself are convicted. Yes, I need to live a better life. I need to live my life for Christ. Yes, God is real in my life. After that, you want these great big things to happen. But they don't. God was not in the wind. God was not in the earthquake. God was not in the fire. And I was thinking, you know, what do they have in common? What I saw was, well, they're all very loud, right? The wind was like busting up the rocks and stuff like that. Earthquakes, also fire. They're all very destructive. They make a lot of noise and they get your attention, but they're kind of destructive. And the Bible says God wasn't in any of that. But then there was a gentle whisper. The end of verse 12. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. Does God seem silent to you at times? Like you're calling out to Him, you really need Him, and you want Him. You actually, in your heart, you really desire for God to do something in your life? Because you're sick and tired of the way things are going? Or because you've tried and tried and tried, but there aren't any changes? You know what I'm talking about? Happened with me and my parents. When I was growing up, you know, I love my parents. It's hard to say it, you know, and I never say it to them, right? It's hard to say it. But when my dad's angry, or when my mom, to a lesser degree, but when she's angry, when they accuse me of things, right? When they, you know, they say they're disappointed in me. You know, older generation Korean. Like, I'm not an older generation Korean, you guys. There's even older generations than that, okay? So my parents' generation, the older generation Koreans, they do not filter their words. They say what's on their minds, and they say very, very hurtful things. And I pray that you guys never hear words that I've heard from my parents. Not my mom, my dad. The words that I've heard from him. Oh my goodness, you'd be shocked. Or maybe not. Maybe you guys are used to, you know, saying stuff like, you know, I regret ever having you, or, you know, you make my life so terrible, and you know, why are you, you know, like this and like that, and, you know, and things like this. And it's hurtful and painful and stuff like that. But I, you know, I still love them, right? And there are times when I really want to obey. I really want to do what's right. I really want to please them. I really want to, you know, but it just doesn't come out right. Have you tried to obey your parents, but it just didn't come out right? And they totally misunderstood? That's like my life. Because they already have a preconceived view of what I would do and what I would say. And, you know, a lot of it is my fault. It's because I normally act that way, right? And I normally say things that way. But in those special moments where I really want to obey, when I really want to do what's right, and it just doesn't come out right, it doesn't work out correctly, And my parents get angry and upset and things like that. It's like, God, why aren't you doing something in this situation? God, you know my heart. You know that's not what I meant to do. You know that's not what I meant to say to my parents. And they're totally misunderstanding you. God, why aren't you doing something about this? And then he just seems to be silent. A lot of times, I think it's because I expect the earthquakes and the fire and the wind that destroys. I expect these great big things so much that I don't listen to the gentle whisper of God. Sometimes when I'm crying out to God, my cries are so loud that I can't hear Him speaking. I don't know if God is ever silent in the way that we consider silence, meaning He's just not there and He's just not doing anything. He's just sitting there, not doing anything. But you guys, I don't think that's ever the case. Even when we can't seem to see God or hear God or feel God, notice God working in our lives, it seems like He's being silent. I don't know if that's the case. You guys, God is always at work to take care of us. Always. Even in the times when there seems to be silence. Compared to the earthquake and the fire and this wind that broke up the rocks, God's whisper is very, very quiet. And if you're sitting there just complaining and screaming and yelling, you'll never hear it. Then why does God whisper? Why wasn't He in the earthquake? Why wasn't He in the fire? Why wasn't He in the wind? Why does He whisper? Why doesn't He just, because He's God, right? He's almighty, right? Why doesn't He just, whoa, and then we're like, oh, okay, I guess you're there. All right, my bad. Why doesn't He just do that? He does that because He wants to develop that relationship with us. He wants us to be faithful. He wants us to grow in faith and dependence on God. Do you know when God seemed to be the most silent in the Bible? Do you guys remember when Jesus went to John the Baptist and he was being baptized? What happened? There was a voice from heaven, right? God saying, "This is my son and I am so pleased with him." Right? We hear the voice of God when Jesus is being baptized. This is my son. Where was God's voice when Jesus was being crucified? You would figure that if Jesus, God's only begotten son, speaks to God, you would think that God would answer. Right? Where was God's voice when Jesus, being crucified on the cross, says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Where was God's assurance, "I haven't forsaken you. I'm here for you. I'll be there for you"? Where was that voice? It's not like God couldn't speak. When Jesus is being baptized, God's voice said, "This is my son, and I'm so pleased with him." And yet, in the time of Jesus' most difficult, hardship, his dying breath, the time when he needs God the most, it appears as if God is silent. Do you think God abandoned his son Jesus? Of course not. God was there. God had a plan. Jesus is going to rise again on the third day. And so in that moment, Jesus, his trust in God was displayed for all to see. The angels didn't have to come down and minister to him. The angels didn't have to come down and heal his wounds, because Jesus had his trust in his Father. You guys, we want these great big things to happen, especially when we're in trouble, especially when we're suffering. We want God to come down and do these like great, whoa things so that we can say, whoa, God is there and God is with us. But you know what? God, during those times of apparent silence, He's actually building our faith and building our trust in Him. If you read the rest of the story, it turns out very well for Elijah. When God is silent, when you don't think God is really there, that He's not speaking, I think the first thing that we need to ask is He really silent? Or am I just too loud? How can I listen to God's voice, His whispers in this situation? How is God telling me right now to have faith, to have trust in Him, to not worry because God has everything under His control? That's what God does. I know, there are times in your life you're like, God is not here. God, what? I mean, He's not. And our favorite thing to say is if, right? If God were here right now, then He would have done this. If God existed, He would have done that. If God existed, He wouldn't have done these. I mean, this is like our favorite thing to say, right? Because we constantly try to create God in our own image. But I thank God that God is nothing like me. God is there for you. Always has been, always will be. That's His promise. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes you feel like you're all alone, but you're not. Listen to God's whisper. So at this time, the worship team come out. Let's spend a couple of minutes in prayer.